And so the community needs to help the police department in identifying the suspects, where they are, what they suspect them, you know, where they might be hiding out or what they're doing. People know where these folks are. And so that's where it's important for the community to buy in and be an assistance to the police department. And I'm struck too by the information that very often suspects are picked up by our friends in the Highway Patrol or the Sheriff's Department, who happen to stop a car because there's a bad license or a bad light or some problem with it, and they find out that the person in it is a parole violator or has a gun in the car. So these are the partners that help us get, you know, the bad guys and girls off the street. And we have to be grateful to them because they are really helping us in this process. So I think Mr. Johnson said it well. It is everyone's responsibility in this community to be part of the solution, individually and collectively, and we each have a part to play in that in terms of reducing, you know, the crime stats in our community. But I have a follow-up question for you. We know we need more police officers. We also know there are vacancies in the police department because of retirements. We know that we've got a COPS grant of $7.8 million that will put 17 more officers on the street. How soon can we expect to see some of those new hires actually on the street? If you'll explain that process, that will help us all understand that.
Absolutely. Our authorized strength this year is 344 sworn. We're at 318 today. We have 6 more officers coming on in the next 2 weeks. But we also have 6 officers leaving that are going to other organizations. And so as fast as we're hiring them, some of them are leaving. So we've got that chore as well. Now we have 13 people assigned to do nothing but background investigations, to hire new police officers to try and replace those positions. My goal to the administration division that runs our background investigations is to get to that 344 by July 1st, when the 17 officers will be funded for the COPS grant. Now we're still going to have to hire those positions, and many of those may have to train and go to an academy. We'll see the real impact of those late in 2013, but realistically in early 2014. So we're going to have to understand that the staffing levels we have now, even when we get back to 344, they're going to have to sustain us all through next year. And so as we prioritize how we get people hired, we try and hire the lateral entry officers, those with experience first. Then we try and hire academy graduates, those that have already completed an academy. And then our trainees, those that are going to go to an academy, we send away to academy, and then bring them back. When we get a lateral entry officer, they can work with a field training officer for 6 to 8 months and work by themselves. We get an academy graduate, somebody who's already been through the police academy. 6 or 8 months later, they can go out on the street and work by themselves. When we send them to the academy, we lose them for 6 months. Then they come back and work for another 6 or 8 months with an FTO. So realistically, although we're going to be adding 17 positions, which is really, if you were to put them just in patrol, is less than 2 officers on each shift each day. So although we're working back towards it, when we get up to the 361 sworn, that's still 80 positions down from where we were when we first started. So the struggle to get people hired is continuous. Other departments are hiring as well. We had officers from our department who was the Lodi applied for just 1 position up there. And so with all of those, the priority is hiring, the priority is the violent crime, the priority is property crime. The one thing that keeps Stockton in the top 5 in the state for decades now in overall crime is more property crime than is violent crime. Even Dr. Baraga's report, when he talked about it, the majority of the violent crimes occur in a smaller part of the community. The larger community is actually impacted by the property crime.
Okay.
We've got to find ways to work on that.
And one of the facts is that the bulk of the violent crime, and you can confirm this or not, the homicides, say, are related to what we call lifestyle choices, i.e. involvement with gangs, drugs, or prostitution, those kinds of things. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate, especially in light of these last few. We had another shooting last night involving some of the recent shootings that we had, and there was, I think there were 33 rounds fired into a home where a woman was hit in the hand. Well, that person, that victim of that crime, has been a part of some of the warring games have been going back and forth. So we're going to work very hard this weekend to try and stem that retaliation that has been occurring after we've had those original shootings. So our gang violence suppression unit is working very hard with others to impact those. We're taking a no-nonsense, zero-tolerance approach to those things. If you're going to shoot up the streets of Stockton, we're coming at you with everything that we have left. We're going to request additional assistance to come after you and lock you up. The thing to understand is we spend a whole lot of time on those violent crimes and don't have the personnel to patrol the neighborhoods to impact the property crime that we all feel every day, and to impact the population that we see walking around and gives us that sense of security. We all feel it and we all see it. So that's why it's so important. Although I can pull in the collaboration to help you with the violent crime and some of the spikes in violent crime, I don't have the ability to pull in collaborations to just do regular patrol routine work. That needs to be done by the people that work here. So we're going to have to find ways to do that, and we're going to have to get as creative as we can. Thank you.
Mr. Dice, did you have any other comments? Or?
Sure. As you mentioned, the majority of the violence is associated with lifestyle issues. And I don't think it's always clear in the community when they see homicides, the full story behind it. And the South Stockton task force that you made reference to, not every police department does this. We asked the sheriff to help. We asked the U.S. Marshal to help. Parole, probation, to focus in on what primarily was a family, literally Hatfield and McCoy kind of issue. The people that read about the murders don't know that. They're not random. There were two families fighting it out. And so by putting these people together, immediately over the span of a week, 43 arrests, 24 of them due to felonies, 16 handguns taken off the street. People don't connect the dots because it's to the best we're communicating the best we can, but we're reliant on the media to connect the dots at the end of the day. So there's a lot of immediate things going on now. Somehow somebody hijacked this Marshall Plan and made it into something that it never was to be. And I'm concerned that with the assistance of the media, it's being inaccurately portrayed. You notice when people came up here and did their sound bites, cameras are here. You notice when it's time to talk facts and figures, they're essentially gone. That's what we're dealing with on this issue, and it's a shame. The fact of the matter is your council said there's 4 goals that are going to change Stockton for generations to come. And under those 4 goals, we identified 37 initiatives that we thought if we focused on those initiatives, they would make an impact on those goals. 37 of them. We never committed to doing them all now. It's a very aggressive approach that I've told some of you it's really a 2 to 3 year game plan. Some of them are so far-reaching that, to see the effect, it's going to take some time. We don't focus just on these initiatives. We respond to what comes our way, as the police chief mentioned. But if we're going to make some long-term impacts, we've got to have some bold plans. Some of those initiatives were easier, more immediate. Some are more what I would call transformational, that really will take some time. The more immediate ones, you adopted a 10-point fiscal sustainability plan. I am still getting calls across the state that want copies of that because they are so impressed how very specific it was, and that is driving what we're implementing. I mean, the cities up and down the state are literally copying that. Faced a $37 million deficit, something that cities would take 3 to 5 years to deal with. You did it in 6 months, and the preponderance of those savings were associated with concessions, compensation concessions, not service level impact. Because again, public safety was the number one priority. We talked about we need to do, in some of your strategic initiatives, dig down into the business of some of these funds and these programs because they're putting the general fund at risk. And we're doing that. Our finances are stressed. Our goal was to balance the budget, but we're still getting changes in our revenue picture and our financial situation, and so our immediate plans are to get through this budget cycle and start planning for the next budget cycle. The irony is when you went out in the community, and this is a nationwide conversation, is you got to live within your means, you got to deal with your retiree health program, you got to deal with concessions rather than services. And you did exactly that. But now the media is turning around and saying the sky's falling because some people choose to leave because of the concessions and putting the city at risk. So you get hammered going and you get hammered coming, and it's just not fair. You're putting yourself up for scrutiny that a lot of cities will not. We're going through a management audit in our permits department. I've talked to so many people who've been complaining about this for 10 years and nothing's been done. You're taking it on and you're doing something about it. It's not as fast as what everybody wants, but we will have a 2-year game plan to transform a department that has been challenging from a lot of people's perspective for 10 years, and you're going to be doing it. You're doing it now. So it's not from making bold moves. Some things take some time. And then when it comes to the Marshall Plan, I think it's been mischaracterized, and they're applying that term to what Blair was talking about, what they've been doing now. Stockton has had a high crime rate since the gold rush era. It's always going to be Stockton's challenge. It's always going to be a burden. But to make lasting change in that area, it's not going to happen overnight because it hasn't developed overnight. Yeah, we've got to attack the spikes, and that's what Blair's doing. But in order to make a change, it's like changing the performance of kids in school. You got to have a plan. You got to be methodical. You can't chase sound bites. You can't chase the squeaky wheels. You can't listen to pseudo-experts. Government, everywhere I've worked, has had the same sort of challenge, and Stockton has a similar history. A lot of studies, a lot of people get together and they vent, and everybody feels good and everybody goes away, and very little has changed. And the thought with the Marshall Plan was be methodical, get the experts together, and talk about what's causing our crime, and how can we work better together. And the term Marshall Plan came from, follow the history is, after World War II, the United States sat down and worked with, I think, 17 sovereign nations to redevelop Europe and recover into a new economy. So here's the United States in somebody else's land working and getting themselves out of the trauma of World War II. Well, we're not a sovereign nation, but like the United States, we're working with people that have a stake in the crime issue. And I think that's the most misunderstood thing. We are a small player in the crime issue.
Frame around, this issue in our community for the time being, but stay tuned because there'll be continuing conversations and discussions and meetings as we look toward transforming what happens here in Stockton. And that's really what we're talking about, is a transformation of how we do business, how we work together, how we try and address the systemic problems that we have, within our community. So with that, we're going to move on the agenda.
We are now at the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, council members, what's your pleasure?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your votes.
Motion carries 7-0. There are now the first item under new business, which is the contract for professional advisory services.
Mr. Locke.